I'm here at Paducah Tilghman High School to experience something called a ghost out. We'll watch as students learn about the consequences of driving while impaired. I'm your host, Public Information Officer Pam Spencer. Your City at Work is next. Teenagers often think, it won't happen to me, or I'll be fine. But the truth is, across the nation, traffic crashes are the #1 killer of teens. Well, that is why many transportation cabinets have decided to start programs called Ghost Outs. Well, joining me now from the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety is Tony Hauser. Hi, Tony.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great today.
Good.
Explain, how is a Ghost Out program structured? What does it mean, and what do the students experience?
Well, as the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety, we just partner with the local schools. The schools put together a local help through the police department and the fire department.
Okay.
And we work with the teachers and the kids to show them the real consequences of drinking and driving or being impaired while driving. The Ghost Out works. We wheel the casket down. We actually have a preacher read the obituaries of the children that they prepare themselves.
Yeah, because the students actually write their own obituaries.
They do, yes ma'am. And then we cover the kids up with a sheet, and we just want to get the full effect. We want the kids to know that these things, do and can happen, out here on an everyday basis.
And this program is not just a 1-hour program. It pretty much takes a whole school day, or you can have something that goes for a whole week of just that education component. So what have they had today?
We actually prepared for the actual Ghost Out event today. We started getting our first student out at 8 o'clock this morning, and we take one out of the class every 30 minutes.
And who takes the student?
Well, the law enforcement and the local fire department.
And the Grim Reaper?
And the Grim Reaper, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And he's pretty scary. They have a pretty good impact on the kids. Most of them are pretty shocked. Some of them are scared and frightened. We see all kind of different, expressions, and you never know what you're going to get when you pick your next victim.
And why every 30 minutes? That number's significant, isn't it?
Yes, the statistics show that every 30 minutes someone loses their life to an impaired driver, whether it be, them driving or someone hitting them that is impaired. So that's why we, key in on the 30-minute intervals.
Now, the process of writing their own obituary, so the students who have been pulled out of class today, they had to go write their own life story, basically.
They do. They tell, loved ones they've left behind, dreams that they, are dreaming of in their future, going to college, playing sports, or starting a business here in the area. They've got a lot of, a bright future, and they put that in words and tell about the loved ones they leave behind, and passions and joys, things that they like to do. They put all that in words in an obituary, and then it's read by a pastor at the end when we get ready to actually have the ceremony.
And what kind of feedback do you get from the students as well as parents and teachers? And
it's pretty shocking. I mean, it hits home for everybody. We've, lost some lives here in the area over the years, and you never know how it's going to affect someone, whether it be a family member or a loved one. We've had kids get very emotional, and teachers, stuff like that kind of hits home sometimes when, we lose someone in the area and the community. So.
Well, it's a very powerful program. It's a very needed program, because
Thank you.
Education is the key. Well, Tony, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank y'all for covering the story.
Well, thank you. Well, one of the main partners in this effort, in addition to the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety, as well as the Paducah Tilghman High School, is the Paducah Police Department. Up next, we're going to talk to Captain Don Hodgson. Many of the factors that cause crashes can be prevented. That's where education comes in. Joining me now with the Paducah Police Department is Captain Don Hodgson. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us again.
Tell me about the partnership that the Paducah Police Department has been working on with schools and just local citizens.
Yeah, like we talked about before, we decided we had too many traffic crashes and too many fatalities in the city of Paducah. So we made an effort to reduce those through education, engineering, and enforcement. And this is part of the education branch. We've spoken at several of the high schools in the area, several civic groups, and this is something we're trying to do to affect the collision rates and the fatality rates in the city of Paducah and McCracken County as well. In 2012, we had 7 alcohol-related fatalities in Paducah, McCracken County. That's too high for us. So we've made a choice to go heavy on enforcement for DUI and also the educational component that comes in. One of the things that concerns us about high school age kids is the leading cause of death for teenagers is car crashes. And particularly high frequency of those car crashes are alcohol-related car crashes and texting and driving and the distracted driving and risk-taking behaviors. So with the Heads Up, Don't Be Intoxicated program that we did in the fall, covered the texting and driving, and then we're doing the alcohol awareness and the drunk driving awareness the week before prom to hopefully make an impact and get these kids to realize there's consequences to the choices that they make.
And the best thing is prevention before you get in the car.
Yeah, we'd much rather stop a wreck here or a drunk driver here. We don't want to have to respond to those types of scenes anymore. And statistically, 1 in 3 people will be affected by a drunk driving collision during their lifetime. So that's, if you're sitting down at a movie theater and you look to your left and your right, and you see those people, you think one of the 3 of us, somebody's relative is going to be affected by a drunk driver, or one of those 3 of us, and that's a staggering fact to think about how often that affects us.
How does it make you feel? I mean, you're a father, when you respond to a traffic collision with injuries?
It really is concerning, and you feel for the families. And doing the Heads Up, Don't Be Intoxicated, and talking to Kelly Samples, our speaker today from MAD. I really see kind of the other side of it. As a police officer, it's kind of clinical, and we're looking for to report what happened. But doing the Heads Up, Don't Be Intoxicated, and talking with Kelly Samples, you see what the effects are and how this affects not only the person that's involved, but their family forever. And these type of crashes never leave them.
Well, kind of going to the clinical side of it, you said before you were looking at engineering and things like that. Tell me what you look at when you're looking at a traffic crash and looking at statistics for the city. What kind of things do you look for?
We look for frequency, we look for locations, time of day, days of the week, and then we look at human factors. What are the human factors that are involved in the collision? We just recently started with the traffic unit.
Right.
They look at high frequency areas, and they go out and do a site visit and do an assessment and say what environmental factors are there here.
Right.
If we cut these bushes back and people could see from the stop sign better, would that cut down on the collisions? Is there an issue with maybe with the paving? And then we would partner with the transportation cabinet and get their people to come out and look and say, does this section of the roadway need to be repaved, or do we need to maybe take some of the grade out of this hill so that we increase the sight distance?
Okay, well, we appreciate everything the Paducah Police Department's doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Captain Hodgson.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And coming up next, we're going to talk to some of the students who had to write their own obituaries. After the Grim Reaper selects a student, one of their first tasks is to write their own obituary. Let's hear what some of them had to say.
When the Grim Reaper came into my classroom, I was a little bit shocked. I was expecting it because I had been told that I would be pulled out, but I wasn't expecting like a 6'8" guy covered in black with a huge knife thing going on. whenever he came in, everyone in the room got quiet, and I was like, oh, it's for me, it's for me.
It kind of made me nervous. I didn't know what to, I kind of knew I was getting out, but I didn't really know that he was gonna look that intimidating.
You know, it's really scary when you're sitting there and then this random Grim Reaper comes in and tells you, that you're dying. It's just really frightening.
He didn't say anything. All he did was just come in, tap my shoulder and told me to come with him, and then the police officer said that I died in an accident and I would be no longer in class, in school today, and the only way my friends could see me if they came to my funeral.
It's just crazy thinking, at any point in time you could drink and then get behind the wheel and, die, and it's crazy to think about.
If this happened in real life, my family would be sad, heartbroken, and distraught. I don't think they'd be able to cope with what just happened.
It made it all realistic. I can go at any moment, anything can happen, and anyone that we know, that we don't know, anyone can just go at any time. We don't have control over other people's decisions, but we can, like with this event, try to teach them not to make those decisions that can alter and end lives.
Me and my family are very close, and I think losing me would cause a lot of problems and they'd be very heartbroken.
My family would be very, very upset. There's a lot of kids, but me being the oldest, I really have a strong relationship with everyone. And if I were to lose a sister or brother, I would be absolutely devastated. And I know they would move on and be strong about it, but I think that they would start an organization of some sort to try to make people aware of what their decisions can cause.
This could come without warning, and it kind of made you feel kind of nervous writing your own obituary.
We just had to write about, what school we went to, how we died, who we left behind, what our goals were for the future. I want to be a neonatal nurse because I just love working with babies, and that's my future.
I wrote about my goals for my life and how I want to be a doctor and I want to travel the world and give medicine to areas that don't have access to it at all. And I want to be, along with the medicine, I want to be a missionary and spread the gospel. And that can all go away. All my dreams will never happen if something like this actually did happen to me.
I wrote about how sports, I had a deep involvement in sports and my ambitions, and then my ambitions in college and just my goals in life.
From this day, I'm going to take how I really need to focus on how I treat people and how I want people to perceive me after I pass. I want people to think of me in a positive manner, not one that's negative and hurts people's feelings. I could go at any time, and when I go, I want to leave a good legacy.
Stay with us as this entire experience is pulled together at a powerful school assembly. Plus, we'll talk to today's guest speaker, Kelly Samples. The students today, when they go to their ceremony, will be able to hear a very powerful message and a powerful story from Kelly Samples, who is with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Thank you so much for joining me, and tell me your story because it is powerful.
Well, my brother and I were hit by a drunk driver when I was 12, and that was in 2004. And both of us were very seriously injured. There was one fatality in the wreck, and since then it's been, I don't know how many years is that, 9 years later, yeah. And I just go around and telling my story to people and try to help them so they don't have to go through the pain that I went through.
Now tell me a little bit about, you've actually talked to the driver, the drunk driver. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, I have. Last year, he was coming up for parole, and I was nervous. I thought, if he's going to get on parole, I want to talk to him first. And so I wrote him a letter. And in my letter, I told him, I said, I've forgiven you for what has happened. But I just beg you, please never drink and drive again. And so a week after I sent that letter, I got a phone call, and he wanted to talk to me. And so I didn't know what to do except go to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I went to the prison 2 days later, and I didn't even get to say my name and introduce myself. He just poured out, I'm so sorry. Wow. I wish this hadn't have happened to you. I wish that I could have changed everything. And as we sat there and talked, he said, Kelly, in your letter, you asked me to never drink and drive again. He said, I'm going to do you one better. I'm never going to drink again. And as soon as he said this, I was like, you're ridiculous. It's not possible. do you know how hard it's going to be when you get out of here to not drink alcohol?
Right.
And he said, I don't want anything to do with it. He said, all of my life I've drank alcohol since I was a teenager, and it's just caused so many problems. And he kept talking about the wreck and about what he was planning on doing with his life. And right before I left, I stood beside him. He said, Kelly, I promise you, I never want to drink again. And I didn't know what to do, except I stuck out my finger and I said, do you pinky promise? And he laughed and he stuck out his finger right back at me and he said, I pinky promise. So I've held him to that pinky promise to this day.
Now, what do you want the students to learn from you? I mean, your story's powerful, but you want them to take away that promise.
Well, I tell them the story and I tell them the pinky promise that the drunk driver made to me that day in prison. And then I challenge them to make a pinky promise that they will never drive under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And I hope that they hold themselves accountable to their friends and to their family, and because it's not worth it. It's not worth losing the life over drinking and driving.
Now, how many speeches do you do usually a year? I mean, have you done this? Is it a passion for you to make this your story out there?
Passion's like I want to change the world, which I know is impossible to stop every single drunk driver out there. But every time somebody asks me to speak, I go. I never say no.
Wow.
And because I want to share my story. And after I tell the kids the pinky promise, they have the opportunity, if they want, to take a bracelet with them that says I pinky promise on it.
Okay.
And I wear it every day just to
That
remind
pink bracelet did?
Yeah,
Okay.
it says I pinky promise on it. And even if they don't wear it every single day, they can still put it in their drawer and
Think about it.
see it when they clean it out, I guess.
Well, if just every day they'll think about it, because it's prevention. It's all about prevention. These are things that can be prevented.
Yes, so hopefully it helps somebody.
Okay, well, Kelly, thank you so much for sharing your story and trying to spread that education.
Well, thank you. Do you pinky promise?
I pinky promise, definitely. I pinky promise. Well, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
Well, stay with us.
Oh, 1080s, dead people. Central, can you give a little better description of where we're going? Gonna be 2 kids dead, I guarantee you.
We're coming up on a wreck. Okay? All right, bye. $77, 31, or 32?
Yeah. Get on the other side first, too.
Let's get these two.
Central, see if you can get somebody to come in the opposite way from Baghdad on 12 to block this. We get the bad hill here. We're gonna need somebody to come in that way and block for it. We can't get on this side we're on. I'm so sorry. 9, go ahead. Big brother.
Let's get the best of
10-4.
It's okay, Billy. You're okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I got 2 here, I got 2 over here, and you guys got 1 there. We got it. 1 there, 1 that's on here.
None of you all in this audience know me. My name is Kelly. And that was me on July 23rd, 2004. I was the one that you just heard screaming. And I was the one who had been hit by a drunk driver. You see, I was at a bonfire at my friend's house, 12 years old. My brother and his girlfriend came to pick me up. We were on our way home, and less than a mile away from our house, there was a car coming towards us from the opposite direction. My brother watched as the car slid off the road and he hit his brakes. But then the other car overcorrected itself and came sideways into our lane. There was nothing my brother could do. Crash. When we hit, I had been in the back seat, and I went from the back seat to the front windshield. The right side of my face and shoulder hit the glass, the left side hit the dashboard. The only reason I wasn't ejected is because my foot got caught between the passenger seat and the console. My brother, the steering wheel broke down on both of his legs, and they were crushed. So he tried to get out because he had his medical bag in the trunk, but he couldn't move. So all he knew to do was put his shoulder underneath of my spine to keep it aligned until help got there. In the other car was the drunk driver and his girlfriend. They had also been in a party that night, but it wasn't like mine. They both had a blood alcohol content that was almost 3 times the legal limit. The woman in that car died instantly. There was nothing they could do to save her. When people arrived on the scene, they didn't know what was going to happen. We were so close to my house that people went and told my parents immediately. And they were trying to get out the words to my mom what had happened when she heard the helicopter fly over top of our house and land into the field next to ours. My brother and I were stat fly to Louisville hospitals. My brother had lost a lot of blood, and I had a chance of serious brain injury and being blind. When we got to the hospital, I was rushed to x-rays, MRIs, CAT scans. That next couple months was spent a lot of time in and out of the hospital. And yeah, I had broken bones, And yeah, but I had to start school. I was supposed to go to the 8th grade. My life didn't stop. So I walked into school that first day, and my first day wasn't like everybody else's. I was the girl with scratches on her face. And people called me names. And the name calling, it hurt. And the broken bones, it hurt. But nothing hurt worse than that first time I saw that drunk driver. The first time I saw him, it was at the court case for the trial. He walked in, and I just wanted him to see me. I wanted him to look me in the eyes, because I thought, if you see me, you'll see how bad you hurt a 12-year-old little girl. I wanted him to feel the pain that I had felt. I guess I expected him to say, I'm sorry. I accepted some kind of apology to show remorse for what this man had done. But that whole week at the trial, he just looked down at the floor and didn't say a word. He was found guilty. He was found guilty of 1 second-degree manslaughter and 3 second-degree assaults. He's still in prison to this day. But after that trial, I had to keep going to school. My life didn't stop just because he was in prison. So I started growing up. And I was in high school just where you all are. And in the 11th grade, I remember being at a bonfire with my friends again. And then all of a sudden some alcohol showed up. And I stood there at the campfire while most of my friends had a beer in their hand. I thought, what are they doing? I went back to that man who I had hated for all these years, who was sitting in prison. I thought about him and how I hated him so much, about how he had made a bad choice that night. And then I looked around at my friends and I was afraid, because I didn't want them to make that same choice. I didn't want them to be 17 and 18 years old and hurt a 12-year-old little girl.
I hope that this episode will motivate you to talk to your friends and family about wearing their seatbelt and about the dangers of driving while impaired or while driving distracted. Thank you for watching Your City at Work.